So welcome guys. So now in the step 2, we'll create the story component. So where we left off was where we created the profile component. And now what we will do is we're going to target our story component. So you need to come into SRC, your source folder. You need to create a new folder called a helper folder, which will have our helper function. And inside you need to name it a new file. You can create it exported function actually, and exported function.ts. And inside we'll export our logos and our pictures of what we need for the story. So export logo. So logo is sitting in the asset folder that we have. So these, we're going to export it from here. So we're going to say require, and a require is given to us by React Native. Sorry, not React Native as in the JavaScript. So you say this slash assets and slash binary top logo, which we have it over here, binary top dot logo, sorry, dot png. And we're just gonna do this, and we're gonna copy and paste it. So we need it for the cross where we close our story, we need it for our pause, we need it for our play, we need it for our mute, and we need it for our unmute. So let's rename these things: cross where we close, pause where we pause the story, play where we play it back, and then we have it mute, then we have an unmute. So, and don't forget to change the command S, and don't forget to change these images, so which are white cross, and then we have our pause.png, and then for play we have play.png. So, and for the binary top, for the mute we have muted.png, and for our binary for our unmute we have sound. So this is where where it displays the sound. So this is looking good. Now we need to create an export function which will have our stories, so in the order. So stories, and this will be an array, and which will have objects. And firstly we need to define our type, which is the type. So for the story, obviously in a real world scenario it's a backend that's returning these things, but we are simulating these things and we don't have a backend, so we need to show you how this works. So we're going to say a type of image, and we're going to say what is the image. So image URL, we need to require this, and you need to come in here, image, and then you need to dot slash assets slash asia.png. So like that, and you hit comma, copy this and paste it, and paste it. So for now we have one will be coding.png, deer.png, and mountain.png. So we have our for videos, we're gonna add a new library, which we will do once we set up our story component, and then we'll add stuff to this over here. So let's go back into our SRC folder, and in the component we need to create a story component, which is a new file, story component.tsx. So story component.tsx, and hit enter, and inside you have story.component.tsx. And now we have the story.component.tsx. So what you need to do is you need to come back into your app.tsx. So we're going to do conditional rendering. So we're going to say if we are inside the story, we're going to check what is the value that is being held. If this is true, so if inside story is true, then show us the story component, which we will re-render, right, which will create it right now. So just want to give you a structure of what it will look like. And otherwise we're gonna close the brackets, and then we're gonna say if not, then we're gonna display this. And in this way it says story component is not defined. And we definitely, while we are here, we will create a prop where we will say on finished story. So function where we finish our story when we close the button, when we press on the close button, and when the story ends, this will make the state false. So, and then it will show us the profile back again on finish story. So a function which we will pass the close story function over here, and we'll say, so now we just don't have the story component, so we need to create the story component. So story component is the main component that we need for our story. So let's get started. And firstly, for the story component, if you remember, we imported React last time, and we need to import React every time. And then we need to create the prop, which is called the we're gonna give it a type. Let's say type story prop. And this story prop, what it does is on finished story, which is the on finish which we are passing. And we're gonna say on finished story just return nothing, and we're just basically obviously close, we're not returning anything. So on finished story do nothing, but we are expecting an on finished story prop from the story component when it's called. So story component. And guys, definitely, because in JavaScript we definitely don't have types, so when you pass anything, it just accepts it. So TypeScript is better, it safeguards you for an error that's yet to come. So that's really good, and I will definitely recommend you guys to use TypeScript with React. So React.functional component, if you remember, we need to give a type, story prop over here, and we are now expecting, we'll destructure it, we'll say on finished story. We're expecting it because on finished story is being called. So, and we'll say an arrow function, and now we're closing it. So now it says like story component is assigned a value, but it never returns anything. So for now, let's return something. So it goes away. Let's say text of let's say my name or my channel name, Binaryhood, and this is going to say text and add import React Native. Story component is assigned a value but never used, and we need to export it. As you remember, export default story component. And yeah, so now obviously we're not using on finished story yet, but we are going to use it later. So what we need to do is, now obviously this is a big component that we're going to be creating. So on the initial, we're going to basically create some functions which we are going to use when the story is going to be running. So let's now save it and basically import this over here, so we don't have an error over here, but this is now a Binaryhood. So as you see now on this function Binaryhood, we can't go outside of it and it doesn't do anything. So for now I have to close this, and let's say stories, and so come back out of it, and let's get started. So now on the initial we need to create some states again. So obviously this will give us some errors initially. We now need to do const we need to do current story index, which is the story index that we are on. So if it's the third story index or fourth, this will store our story index. So currently like an array, but obviously we are using states which are better. And we'll say set current story index. So, and we will say use state, as you remember, use state, and we'll give it an initial value. So we definitely need to give it a default value when we're initializing it. So let's import it, and let's import this from useState. Now it says that useState is not used, so obviously we're not using it. We're going to use it in the function. So const, we're going to check our progress of our story component. So we are now on this feature. So let me show you which feature we are currently now. So now we are on this. So we need to check the progress where we are, and we need to check this on the story. So let's get started, and we're going to track it by a variable. We're going to name it progress animation, progress anim, and we're going to use a useRef. So this is also a good 101 to learn about useRef and useState, because we're actually using them. UseRef is doesn't updates your UI, doesn't renders, and it remembers it holds the current property, and it updates also similar to useState, but useState renders the UI, it re-renders the UI. So we're going to say new animated value, which is animated, and which is provided to us by React Native, a very good thing that they have created. And we're going to say 0 is the current value, and we're going to say dot current, and if I have it correctly, then I need to just import this, so the error goes away, and now we have the current property. So the progress animation holds our current property, and which has this 0 value, which we will change it later. And now we want to, when we pause our story, we want to check the paused progress, so where the user paused the screen. So paused progress, and we're going to use a useRef for this too, because we definitely don't want to re-render the UI when we pause it and re-pause it. So it should seem like stable and like seamless and like integrated. When we pause our story, it should play it back from where it was paused. So, and now another variable which will hold if the story is paused currently or not. Set is paused, and we're going to say use state, and we're going to have it as a false, and which will be used by our icons for our pause and play icon. So, and now we're going to definitely create the current story we are on, and we want to display whatever it's inside that current story. And we're going to say stories, and we are going to say current stories index. So current story index, and definitely stories doesn't exist, but we exported it, so we're going to export it from here. So this stories, and which index we are on, which image we want to show on. So yeah, save it, and we definitely have lots of red errors, and because we are not using these things, and it's saying that why are you creating when you're not using, but we will use it in a minute. Is muted, which will tell us if the story is muted or not, and set is muted. So, and this will also be a use state, and which will hold the value false. And now we have our last one, which will say if we went back, if we went to the previous story, or we went back. So we're going to say set went back to use state. Guys, also while we are saying like 0 over here, it actually automatically TypeScript automatically infers what is the type. But if you want to give it a type, let's say Boolean, and you then give it a value 0, it will say argument is not assignable to type Boolean, because you are expecting a Boolean for this use state. But if you say Boolean or like the OR operator, you say number, then it will go away, because now you're saying that it could be either a Boolean or a number. So just a quick heads up. So I'm definitely not giving it a type, because I know TypeScript will automatically infer it. So now let's create our const render when we render the story component. So story content. So story content, which will be rendering the story component, and we are currently saying we expect a story in, and then we're saying we're definitely, for now we're going to say any and expect anything, and then we're going to type save it in here. We're going to say switch statement. So switch statement, and switch statement is something like a if condition, but it's a lot safer, where you check all the cases. That, let's say you have alphabets A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and you say switch when if it's A, then do this. So now we're going to switch it on story.type. So that thing that's coming from here, we're going to say if it's an image, then render this thing. If it's that, then render that thing. So switch, and then you're going to say case. So case, for now we have image only. So we're going to say image, and we're going to extend it later, obviously. Return an image. Return an image. And you want to say your source. So obviously your source comes with your story.image. We have passed in the exported function story.image, and it's you currently obviously want to also give it a style. So styles dot background. So styles dot background image. We will create this in a short while. So now we definitely have all these, and image, it's saying not defined, but we're going to import this. And we by the way, if when we are in the switch, we definitely want to give a default case. So we're going to say default. If there is nothing, then just return null. Don't return anything. So now we have all these things, and don't worry about these red things. And if you're not seeing it, because I'm seeing it because I have this ESLint error, and then it just shows me if I'm not using anything. So all looking good. Now we have the story component. Now we need to render when we go to the next story. So, or when we want to create our helper function. So const, we need to create the mechanics behind the story, because obviously on the viewer, when you view it, you're just viewing it and clicking it. We want to create the mechanics, and we want to engineer it. So this is the main part, guys. Let's get started. So go to next story, and we want to create a function which doesn't expect any prop, an arrow function. And we now want to say if the current story, so I'll show you what I mean. So if the current story index is less than stories, which the array which we are showing, stories.length -1, then we want to obviously keep going to the next story. But if you're on the end of story, let's say on the last story, and if it's only one story, so then we definitely don't want to go next, because there is no next story. We just want to get out of the story rather than going to the next story. So we're going to say an if, and then we are going to do an animated dot timing. So which will obviously, when we can go to the next story, in this case we can go to the next story. So, and we're going to pass in the progress animation as a reference, and then we're going to say change this value to 1, and we're going to give a duration. For now we can say 3. We can change this later. Duration 3. Duration, and and it also expects a native use native driver, which we are going to say false for now. And now, when obviously in this progress bar, when we have said, we now need to say dot start to start this. So this will start the animation, guys, and then you pass in an arrow function in here, and you will say progress bar. So when you started from the 0, and then you update when it has done, when it has finished. So obviously if it's paused, we want to track our paused progress to 0, because it hasn't been paused. So you want to do 0, and then you want to set current story index to current story index. What is the value in current story index? You want to just add it to that. So 1, and you want to then set your progress. So this is, guys, just want to make sure. So this dot start, when we start it, these will run when it's finished. So when the duration has run to 3, and then the value has then, when the story has been, we make the paused progress to 0 because it wasn't paused. And if we pause it, then we want to track it where it was paused. So when we, and also when we go to the next story, we want to update the index on which story we are on. So now we want to do progress animation dot set value, which we will create a function. So, and which we have been given a function actually, 0, and you do command S for prettier, and the errors goes away. And now this is the else. So what happens if we are on the last story? So we want to say set went back to 0. So set went back is the function that we created. If we went back and we set went back to 0, we're changing everything to back. And now, guys, on finished story, which was being passed, we're going to say on finished story. We're going to just call this function, and this will run this function on finished story. So this will say close story, and this will set the state, inside state, to false, and then this will render the profile when we close the story. And now we want to say set current story index to 0, 2, because all the stories has been seen and we are outside of the story component. So now this story is created. Let's create the next function, which is the main, which runs our progress animation. And guys, if you don't understand this, I will definitely be putting this on my GitHub, which will have all the comments, and I will put comments on each line so you can understand what's going on where. And if you want to, and I will definitely appreciate if you put a pull request and changes, if you can make it better than my original code, I would definitely appreciate it, and I will accept your changes if I like them. So it's definitely an open source thing that I'm creating right now, and it could be helped by people who want to see it or who want to put these in their application. So definitely hoping for a good content that we are going to be putting out for you guys. So run progress animation. So we want to progress our progress animation. We want to set the value. So we want to set the value where we are setting to our paused progress dot current, and we now want to do animation animated dot timing, which is a function given to us by React Native, as we used over here, which changes the animation value. And our main is progress animation, and by you now know what we need to do. We need to create a object, and we need to give it a duration to value. We want to do 1, and we now want to do our duration. It's always duration that goes capital. Guys, obviously you see these red lines, but it's quite helpful when you're working because it tells you where you're not using something, and it's definitely very good thing to have a good coding practice to use it. Now this paused progress and 1 minus paused progress current, and we want to now tell how long we want our story to run. So let's say 6,000. So 6,000 will be 6 seconds. So, and we're not taking this from each video timing right now, each picture. We can actually pass it from here too, but we're not doing it. So we're just giving it a duration by ourselves. And you want to say use native driver to be false. So false. It's always going to capital, guys. And you want to do dot start. And you now want to give it inside. You want to do finished. If we are finished, you want to say an arrow function inside and you want to say if we are finished, then we go to the next story. So we go to the next story, which will be the function. And now we do this go to next story. This does over here, and this runs all our animation. So this is where we are running our animation 6,000, and we are now checking our length and everything if we can go to the next story. So this goes to the next story. So, and now let's get our progress bar width, which we will be showing at the top, what will be the width and everything. So another function, const get progress bar width. So get progress bar width, which will be expecting story index and a number, which is a number, and our current index, which we are on. So this is, and we want to say if our current index is greater than story index, so we want to return the width to be 100%, that it has been seen, that the story was seen. So the story is seen and we are on the next story. So we want to say 100%, which we will use. And we now want to say 100%, and then we want to say if. So another if condition underneath. So this will be also running. It will check both. So if the current index is equal, so all three equal story index, so this is the current story being viewed, we want to return a progress, the progress anim, which is animation, and we want to interpolate. We want to now open it and give an object, and we want to say input range, our input range, and we want to say 0 till 1. And we want to now do our output range, which will be the story, which is going to show the how much can it go from 0 to 100%. So we want to say 0 to 100%. And now we have our otherwise, just return if any of these are not, like, we don't actually go inside of this, we don't meet these conditions, we now return just 0%, that nothing, it's not been seen. So 0%. So start from 0. So 0%. Where is percent? Yeah. Oh, I need to put it inside of string. Sorry, my bad. 0%. And yeah, so now we have three functions. So now we can go to the next story. We are running the animations. We're getting the progress bar width. But what if we go to the previous story? We don't have the function for that. So go to previous story. So go to previous story, and you want to open an arrow function, and you want to check if is paused. The story is paused, which we created the state. We want to set is paused to true. So obviously we will have a function down where we will changing the state. So we want to change it, set is paused to false. Else, if it's not paused, we want to paused progress dot current to be 0. We want to do progress animation, which is also our animation. We want to do set value to 0. And we want to say if our current story index is the 0, is the starting. If we go back on that story, so you want to do set went back +1, and you also need to say run your progress animation again. If you go on the first story, you press back, it should so let's say you're on this story. This is actually only one story, so it will qualify for our condition, and we go back. We don't want to get outside of story. It should restart, because on Instagram, when you press back on the first story, it goes back, it starts again. So we want to say run progress animation again. So if you just close this and you want to come out of the condition, you want to say else, you want to say set current story index. So if you're not on the first one, you want to say current story index 2 plus 1. So we're looking good. Now we have the go to previous story. This is function that we have. Now we want to check our handle press in. So when we press on the story, when we hold the screen, in Instagram, when you hold the story, it normally pauses. It not normally, it pauses the story, pauses the video or the picture we are on. So you want to say handle press in when we press the story on, when we press the screen. So over here, what we will do is we will change the state, handle press in, and we want to say set is paused to true. So set is paused to true, and we want to do it for the handle press out too. So we want to say handle press out, and we want to say set is paused to false, because now we are not holding the screen anymore, and we can unpause it. So now you want to check the screen touch, where the user was touching. So normally when you touch the screen on Instagram, like normally when you touch on the right side, it goes to the next story, and if you're touching on the left side, it goes to the previous story. So you want to say handle screen touch, so screen touch, and you want to take an event. So let's take an event, and you want to say gesture responder event, which is provided to us by React. So React Native. So this is going to tell us where the screen, which is the location where we touched the screen on x-axis. So you want to say const touch x, and you want to say which we are getting when we're calling this, and we will say native event. You want to say location x, which is our location where we touched on x-axis. And you want to say if your touch x is less than the width, so is less than the width, then you do /2, you divide it by 2. If then you want to go to the previous story, it's on the left side. If it's less than the width, half of the width, then you want to go to the previous story. And otherwise, else, if it's on the right side, if it's more than, then you want to go to the next story. As simple as that, guys. And now if you see that we are getting an error that we don't have this width, so let's define this width at the top. You can get the width over here. You can say const width. We want to define our width. So from dimensions dot where we can get from the window, dimensions dot get window, just remembering how it's right. So now let's go down. So now width, the error has been gone away, if you can see, and we can now go to our pause and mute, where we can pause and play, and we can mute our story. So const pause play, and you want to say if is paused. Now we are setting is paused to false. So, and if it's not paused, so if the screen is not paused, then we want to just set it back to true. As you guys so when the is paused is changed over here, it will automatically run this. It will notify any of the use state that's being used, so we can pause and play. So that's really cool by use state, which renders the UI, but you don't need it in every case, because if you have too many re-renders, it's not good for your performance of application. So set is paused to true. So now we are done with that. Now we can do something similar, like a similar function. We can, rather than writing it again, you can do mute sound, maybe mute and mute unmute. Actually, mute unmute. That sounds better. Mute unmute. Mute. Actually, let's name it mute and unmute. So mute and unmute, and you want to say if it is muted, you want to do set is muted. If it's true, then you want to do set is muted false, and else you want to do set is muted true. So that's good. Now we are going to have our use effect. So use effect is a function provided to us by a component, render function provided to us by React. It runs on component load, on mount, on load, and whenever the dependency array changes. So which is really good. When the component is loaded, this is the first thing that is run. So it's something like in Android we have activity functions when the screen is on pause, on when it comes into this on the focus. So it's something like that. So use effect, and what we would do is we have a use effect, and so this function, if we say if it is this, if the is paused is false, if the screen is not paused, then we definitely want to run our animations, keep running it, run progress animation. Otherwise, else if the screen is paused, so you want to say progress animation dot stop. So we want to know where was the screen paused, on which part of the screen, like was it paused here, so we can restart it from there when the user basically takes their hand off the screen. So you want to say value, so this is the value, and you want to say, so paused progress, you want to set to the value that's where it was paused. So now if you see that this is currently not, like, has a empty dependency array, but now it's saying that you need the dependency array has missing. So whenever these things change, it should rerun it again. So whenever the current story index changes, so we want to rerun this, and whenever a screen is paused. So for now we need these two only, and we're going to say disable the error for this line only, because we only need these two arrays. When these two things change, we want to run this use effect again, and it will run regardless of anything else. So we don't need to do anything, and it will run. So this will run our animations and everything and keep on running. So now comes the main part where we're going to define our styles, our view, so we can basically see what is the story component. So let's get started with that. And now comes the main and important part where we can see what we have done, and we can say safe area view, which is something provided to us by React. Safe area view, which it shows this, it shows the component underneath here, underneath the safe area. So, and it's different for different screens where we have notch. So it's underneath that. I'll display a video over here right now, so to show you safe area, how it looks. So we can also actually see it right now. Safe area iOS. So something like this, safe area. So from the left, from the right, safe area. So something like, and then React Native provides us this by default, and we can now actually do style, and we can give it styles as this function is getting a lot bigger, we're going to put the style sheets in an outside of this file and show you how we can import it. So that's also a good thing you can learn. Styles dot safe area. So now we want to obviously put this inside of, as I can do, it's not doing that because our function is not quite big enough. So let's make it big enough by ourselves. So later down the line, it knows. So we need a pressable for now. So where we can press the screen, and in the pressable, you want to do on press. On press, we want to do handle screen touch, which we created. And handle screen touch is this, if you remember. So we want to do go to previous and next stories. So, and you want to do on the long press, we want to pause the screen. So you want to do handle press in, and you want to do on press out. When you press out of the screen, when your finger is off that screen, you want to do handle press out, which we created. Now comes the good part where we have style, and you want to style this with you want to say if the screen is pressed, you want to destructure, and you want to go out of this. You want to say we're going to actually we're going to create an array, and inside you want to say we have our opacity. So the screen, so this, if you see the story, the opacity, so we want to give our opacity of when we pause the screen. We want to, sorry, not for this, actually I'm showing you for when you're on a screen, when you pause the screen, we should get some feedback when we pause the screen, so it changes the opacity, it dims a little bit. So good for the user experience. Pressed, and you want to do 0.9. If it's pressed, 0.9. Otherwise, just keep it 1. We can play around with it. We can make it more. And then actually, because where we want to add it, so it's empty, and where we want to add it, so it's we can do styles. Let's add it because this will be a container, so we can make it a container. So styles.container. So let's see what's the error is. So cannot find styles. Empty components are self-closing. So, and because we have a pressable, so if we have a pressable, so we definitely need to wrap it. We know that it's a self-closing, but we will add more stuff to it because we need to add our view inside of it. So let's get cracking on that. We can add our view. So the error goes away. We need to add stuff inside. So and inside of the view, this will be our also have our container style for our container, because so styles dot container. I'm too fed up by this auto tag that it's completing for me, and I don't like it. And now if you want to render any JavaScript or TypeScript code inside of your like the return elements, you need to do it like this. You want to say your current story, which we are, and we want to say dot type. You want to say dot type if that exists, and then you want to do, if there is a dot type, you want to do render the component that we created at the top. You want to do render story component, and you want to pass in the current story that's being rendered. So now the error, let's import the view. So very good. And actually, while we are doing this, we now need a safe area view. So the story is inside the safe area view. So safe area view, and let me think what we need inside of safe area view. So we definitely need a view. We can provide our styles to that. We definitely need a view, and then we need a styles dot oh man it's keep on bugging me a lot. This thing is bugging me a lot. We want to give our progress, maybe progress bar container. This will show our progress. So we definitely need to give the progress bar container. And you can say, now comes the real part where we want to map the things. So we want to say stories dot map, so the array, and it will have our story, and it will have the index which we are on, which we definitely get from the, and then we say we want to now open this thing up, and we want to return a view inside of this. So one sec, let's see where we went wrong. So we can take a look at this later. So we want to do view. Actually, let's see where we went wrong. So styles don't exist. Okay, that's good. So over here we are good. So we want to do stories dot map, and then we need a function in, sorry, the destructuring of the things that we are going to get from map, and then we need our index. That's good. And we now need an arrow, and this arrow function, which now let's say if we have our view slash view, obviously it's not now closing, and let's do this. We're going to get rid of errors after this. So inside of the view we have styles dot our styles dot progress bar, the background, how it's going to look like, bar background. Actually, I'm getting confused myself because the code is not looking clean, and which I want to make it clean in a second. Animated dot view, and you want to close this. This is a self-closing tag, I believe, which you want to now pass in the style, so to that view, and you want to now give an array to this. You want to say styles dot progress bar that we're going to get, styles dot progress bar, and we're going to say now the width of that. You want to say get progress bar width that we created, and we want to say pass in the index of the story, which will do the and the current story index. So now this looks better. So styles, obviously doing it for me. I didn't even tell you to do style sheet. So sometimes this thing plays with you, and you definitely need to play it with it too. So it's all now good. So now let's see how it looks. If we go inside, so it doesn't have styles. So let's do that. Let's create our styles, which is the last part, and then we'll get started with the mute and play buttons, things that we're not using. So definitely that's all good, and let's create a style folder over here. So new folder, styles. That's good. And inside the styles, you want to say styles.ts. So styles.ts, and so styles.ts, and if you look at similar, like what we did before in the styles, in the profile, it's like something like this. So stylesheet.create, and then we can export it, like export styles, like in the end. So let's do that. So we gonna say const styles, and we're gonna say style sheet dot create, which is the thing that I now is we want to do our container, which we definitely have, and we want to say flex of 1, take the whole screen. Now normally, as you see on Instagram story, it's dark if it doesn't have any content, but the content takes over it, so the picture, it gets dark. You don't want to show a user something like white in a story, so it takes away the ambience away. So definitely you want to now give the hex. So for the hex of a black color, it's just 0 0, I think 3 zeros. And you now want to give the background image, which I can check if I created the background image over here. uh, Not yet, actually, not yet. We haven't created the background. So, but we can give it now as we are here. So background image, and you want to say width. You want to say 100%, 100%, and then you want to say height, 100%. Just copy this. Normally, when it's copy paste, I do love it, like copy paste. And position, you want to say absolute, and you want to say resize mode. We're gonna say cover, actually, because we want a cover pic, so we don't want to stretch the image. So cover, and you want to say border radius. For now, let's keep it 18, then we can play around with it. So border radius, have I given it correctly? Oh yeah, it's a number actually. So border radius, and now comes our safe area. Safe area, and we want to do a flex of 1, take the whole screen. Not the whole screen, take the space, all space available to you. So background color, same, we wanted to do the same color for this. And so we definitely want to see if we have container. So we have safe area like this. So if I'm naming it correctly, yeah. And now we want to do the progress bar container, yeah, how we named it. So we definitely know that we're naming it correctly. Want to do flex direction. You want to do it row. You want your story to be in a row rather than vertical. So the progress, so which we are showing, and you want to do your padding or horizontal between each of the other stories that you're going to be creating, 10. And you want to do padding top from the screen. We were going to do padding top to be 10 too. And then justify content to be center of, and you want to do height of 3, and you want to do background color to be transparent, actually, for this one, because it's a transparent. And now we have this. Now we want to do progress bar background, which we created for here. Progress bar background, we want to flex for this too, take the whole space. and you want to do a height of 3, and you want to do a background color of let's give it an RGB color for this one, because you want to do RGBA, so RGBA, and you want to do 255 comma 255 comma 255 comma 0.5, and the extension that I have installed, which I showed you, color highlight, shows you what color it is. So it's a really good extension, guys. You can install it too, and it lets you know what color it is. So margin horizontal, and you want to do 2. Now we definitely need the last one, which is the progress bar, and progress bar, we now do height of 3, and we want to do background color of white, because this is the progress bar, we definitely need it to be white. So now we want so we can export default styles. So now if we go in here, and it should give us an option. So guys, all looking good. So now the error in the console, now we can refresh it by pressing R. If you press R, it refreshes. So as you can see, what we have, we're not using text, so remove it. We just had it as a display. So now we had pictures over there. So there is a picture. So as you see that this is now running, you press next, it goes away, but we don't have pictures. So this is actually looking really good now. And what we now need to do is we now need to add the pictures, where we basically can show the pictures in the mute and the logo at the top. So it's basically underneath the view, this one, this just before the safe area view. You need to open, remember, just underneath the safe, above the safe area, you need to do a view. You need to open a view, and you can say styles dot top bar, which we will create shortly, the styles for that top bar. And inside this, we want to render an image that will show us our logo. Normally it's the profile, but for this we are going with a different approach. We are making it our own profile, so we're going to show an image. So we can say logo, and which we can import from the exported functions, and we're going to say style, again this logo to be styles dot logo, but this doesn't exist as yet, so it will give us an error. So styles dot logo, and let's see what the error is. So now actually let's go back in the styles, and we're going to create a styles. So we're going to do progress bar. Now we want to do the, so firstly you want to do the top bar is, and we want to do position to be absolute. We want to do our left to be 15 from the left, and from right, not from the right, actually from the top, we want to be underneath the stories index. So we want to do, let's say 18. Yeah, 18. Let's say, I think it will be underneath 18. So 18 looks good. Flex direction to be row. And actually we need to do this in string. And we now need to do align items to be center. And Yeah, now we are good with this one. We now need to do logo. We need to do the width of that logo, 40. We need to make it small. So, and we need to do the height, 40, and we want to resize it actually because it's a if. So we want to do it contain. Now the other things that we missed, we want to do the icon for all the other icons. So we want to do width of 25. We want to do height of 25, and we want to do margin left from each other. We want to be the icons of mute and other things. We want to do it 10. So margin left. So now we just need the containers for our button. So button container. So button container, we need to be at absolute position. So absolute, and we want to do right of 10, let's say, and top to be 25 for now. Top 25. And I think what else do we need for this? Yeah, we want to align it to be align items to be center. So, and the flex direction. Yeah, this was the thing that I was thinking for, that it needs to be in a row. So guys, we have everything now. So style. So now we have the logo, as you see. It goes to the next story, as you see the mechanics when it finishes. And as this picture is too wide, but obviously it will be similar in Instagram way, and you see it looks like similar. And so let's now make the mute buttons. So for the mute button should be having a touchable opacity. We firstly actually need to wrap it up in an own view, which has all these, which will have the container. So styles.image, styles.button container, which we gave it. Now inside we have touchable opacity. Touchable opacity. Inside we have on press function, and on press we want to say when the function is pressed, just mute the sound. Mute and unmute. Actually, we created this function, and now when this is mute and unmute, this will mute, and then we want to do an image. Image tag and image, and you want to do a source. So in source we want to change the image. Obviously if it's muted, then you want to show a mute image, otherwise you want to show unmute image. So conditional rendering, and you want to pass in style for this. Style should be style.icon. So style.icon, and it's actually a self-closing tag, so we don't need to create an image. So, and let's, where is unmute? Is it? Yeah, that's good. So that's now looking good. We now need to close this, and let's say we need to now have 3 of them. So mute and unmute. So for this one we'll do it a pause and play, and we want to do play, and we want to do pause if it is paused. So if it is paused, then we obviously want to play it, and if otherwise we want to pause it when it's being played. And now this one, we want to do, the last one is on finished story. So you want to finish the story when the image is like, we don't want to do conditional rendering on this because we just pass in a cross. So when it's cross, we just want to close the story. So now when we have added our cross icon, we can now reload the app, and I've already saved it. So let's see how it looks now. We have all these icons, and so it looks, with all the icons, it looks really good. And now it goes to the next story, and we're getting an error about a key, which we'll see late now. Now let's see if we go back, what happens. Oh, as you can see, it has missed out this, and we are getting an error. So let's figure out what the error is. So firstly, we were missing a key prop, so we are definitely not passing an, so yes, as you can see, we are not passing an index, which we have missed out. So we definitely want to pass out the index to get rid of that warning. And that error should go away about the warning. So, but what if we go back now? Still, it's not going back. And let's see our mechanics. So when we go to the previous story, we run this function. So we want to see if it is paused, then it pauses the screen, current progress, and went back and everything, and it tracks when it went back. Else, when we go back, we want to make the index -1, and we are adding it rather than going back. We are making it go forward. That's our mistake. So make sure to change this to current story index -1 in your go previous story. And let's run it and refresh our application. So let's see if we go back now. Oh, it looks a lot smoother now, and it's going back. Let's go back now. Like, go back now. Yes. Voila. So that's working. So that was the tutorial for the second part of this video. And in the third part, we're going to add React Native videos, which we can basically add videos to the story component. So thank you for sticking along till this far. And please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to this channel and let me know in the comment section what part of video did you like and what videos do you want me to make more. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next part.